would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
This is exactly what this man, Julius Robert, the father of nuclear weapons, said after witnessing his own creation flatten the city of Hiroshima. The day before, the birth of nuclear weapons could be said to be an important chapter in history, affecting the very survival of the world at that time and forever after. So, what do we know about this weapon on the brink? What do we know about the man who brought it into existence? This August, the blockbuster film Oppenheimer will hit theaters. That is a perfect choice if you want to get the answer or you have another choice, which is right here. Join us on a journey with MrBitut's channel in the video Oppenheimer, the Death Angel, the destroyer of the world. On an ordinary day in Hiroshima, the people of this bustling industrial city of Japan were busily preparing for a new day of work. It is now 8:15 a.m. on August 6, 1945. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until an American strategic bomber glided over the city's sky from an altitude of 400 meters. A large black object fell down and exploded 580 meters above the ground. A second sun was born from a colossal fireball, even hotter than the real sun. It expanded to a radius of 2 kilometers from the epicenter. Every single material thing within a 2-kilometer radius was vaporized into nothingness, leaving no trace. Houses, cars, air, water, money, animals, and people all became nothing. At that very instant, the sky over Hiroshima lost its color, as no one could see anything except the terrifying light from the exploding bomb, instantly blinding Iverian temporally. But that was not the most frightening part. The explosion sent out a blast of air, creating hot winds and a heat wave so intense it destroyed everything within a radius of over 10 kilometers. Water boiled violently and evaporated. Houses and trees burst into flames. Even the water inside the human body vanished in an instant. A colossal shockwave spread faster than the speed of sound, flattening the entire city into a barren plain. All of this created the iconic mushroom cloud image. And the man who brought that monster to the world is here. Julius Robert, the father of the nuclear bomb. He was born on April 22, 1904, into a Jewish family. His father, Julius Oppenheimer, was a wealthy textile importer who had emigrated from Germany to the United States in 1888. His mother was the artist Ella Friedman, who arrived in America with nothing, no degree, and no knowledge of the English language. He also had a younger brother named Frank, who later became a physicist and helped him considerably in his work. In the society of that time, the Oppenheimer family was considered upper middle class and well off. In 1912, the family moved to an apartment on the 11th floor of 155 Riverside Drive in the Hatton area, a famous district known for its luxurious villas and modern homes. The Oppenheimers also possessed an art collection of no small merit, including works by Pissarro and at least 3 original paintings by Vincent van Gogh. With such a strong family foundation and exceptional intelligence, it was not surprising that Oppenheimer attended a prestigious private school in the Bronx. He was a gifted student interested in literature, the English and French languages, and most especially mineralogy. He completed both the 3rd and 4th grades in a single year and skipped half of 8th grade. By his final years of high school, Oppenheimer and his brilliant mind began to take notice of physics and was determined to pursue it. However, fate was not entirely kind. Despite possessing a genius mind, Oppenheimer fell ill at the age of 18, delayed a year by a bout of colitis while surveying minerals on a family summer vacation. To recover, he went to New Mexico. Alongside his required chemistry major at Harvard, he was also required to study history, literature, philosophy, or mathematics. He made up for his late enrollment by taking 6 courses per semester and was admitted to the Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society in his first year. He was accepted into a graduate program in physics based on his self-study results, meaning he did not have to take the basic courses and could immediately begin advanced studies. And here is where the legend was born. In one instance, attending a class taught by this man, physics came to him in a most serendipitous way. In 1924, Oppenheimer received a scholarship to Christ's College, Cambridge. He wrote a letter to Rutherford requesting permission to work at the Cavendish Laboratory. The letter of introduction stated that Oppenheimer's clumsiness in the laboratory made it clear that his strength was not in experimentation, but in theoretical physics. A tall, thin man, a heavy smoker, and someone who often skipped meals during periods of intense concentration, Oppenheimer frequently caused his friends to worry about his self-destructive tendencies. A significant event occurred when Oppenheimer took a vacation to Paris to visit his friend Francis. To help lift his friend's spirits, Francis casually mentioned that he was about to get married. Oppenheimer did not take the news well. He reportedly pushed his old friend off a bridge. This incident led colleagues to believe that Oppenheimer truly had serious psychological issues. Throughout his life, he experienced repeated bouts of depression. Oppenheimer even told his brother he needed physics more than friends. After a difficult period of study and training, in March of 1927, at the age of 23, Oppenheimer received his doctorate. He produced numerous papers, including significant contributions to the emerging field of quantum mechanics. Like many others, after completing his studies, Oppenheimer began a deeper path of teaching and research. Perhaps the most important factor he brought to teaching was his keen sense of judgment. Oppenheimer always knew where the important problems lay, as shown in his choice of topics. He would live with those problems, strive to find solutions, and then present his concerns to his research group. At its peak, Oppenheimer had about 8 to 10 graduate students in his group, alongside about 6 postdoctoral researchers. He met with this group once a day in his office, discussing with each person individually. In a single afternoon, they could discuss quantum dynamics, the physics of the microcosm, electron pair production, and nuclear physics all together. Oppenheimer made important discoveries in theoretical astrophysics, particularly in general relativity and neutron stars, nuclear physics, spectroscopy, and quantum field theory. Expanding this theory into electrodynamics and establishing the mathematical formalism of relativistic quantum mechanics. Despite his many doubts about its feasibility, his predictions foreshadowed many later discoveries, including the neutron and neutron stars. Oppenheimer made significant contributions in the theoretical field of particle physics and began the work that later led to the description of quantum tunneling. Additionally, he undertook countless scientific research projects across many fields throughout his life. However, people would never remember him for these great contributions to science, but always for this one thing. Let us return to the mid-20th century, when World War II was still in its most brutal phase. On October 6, 1939, a letter was delivered in on the desk of the then U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt. It warned that Nazi Germany had made new breakthroughs in nuclear research, which could potentially lead to what the letter described as a new type of bomb with extremely powerful destructive force. The letter concluded, "Sincerely, Albert Einstein." Einstein was not a spy, but he had some friends who had been watching this news for a long time. In December of 1938, two German scientists accidentally discovered that a uranium atom could be split into two radioactive fragments. Later, two American scientists, Fermi and Szilard, realized that the German scientists' discovery could be used to build an atomic bomb with a destructive power greater than anything the world had ever seen. Szilard and Einstein began their effort to build their own nuclear reactor, with only the resources of Columbia University to support them. However, a piece of news in the press greatly alarmed Szilard. Germany had seized the uranium mines of Czechoslovakia and simultaneously banned the Czech government from selling uranium to anyone except Germany. Even more alarming, Szilard discovered that Nazi Germany was trying to build its own atomic bomb. But Szilard at the time thought he was not influential enough to convince the president. He needed a more reputable name. Szilard arranged a meeting with Einstein, presented and shared his concerns with him, and persuaded him to sign the letter to the president. He then passed the letter to Alexander Sachs, an expert in economics and science, who was also a friend of President Roosevelt, to assure the letter would not get lost. Finally, President Roosevelt agreed to meet with Szilard. The meeting was difficult, but the president eventually grasped the gravity of the situation and concluded with one sentence: "Your mission is to ensure that Nazi Germany does not blow up America." After that, President Roosevelt summoned Major General Edwin Buck Weaver, his senior assistant, into the room, handed him the documents, and ordered the initiation of a project codenamed Manhattan. "This issue requires action," the president said. In 1939, the United States established related agencies to launch the Manhattan Project. It began as the Uranium Advisory Committee. Based on the committee's research results, the U.S. government began funding the work of the two scientists, Fermi, who focused on the process of separating radioactive isotopes, also known as uranium enrichment, and the chain of nuclear reactions, after the Manhattan Project was officially launched. In May 1942, the chairman of the National Defense Research Committee, who had once been a professor at Harvard and taught Oppenheimer, extended an invitation to him to come and take on the role of a calculator. "I'm not fast at calculations, but I'm very good at managing operations." He earned the nickname Fast Break Coordinator, a reference to the rapid spread of a chain reaction in an atomic bomb among his colleagues. Of course, at this point, he had joined the project, but was not yet a truly important figure, a key player who would decide its success or failure. In June of 1942, the U.S. Army established the Manhattan Engineering District to take charge of the work related to the atomic bomb project, beginning with the transfer of responsibility from the Office of Scientific Research and Development to the military. Oppenheimer's role also changed when this man, General Leslie Groves, was appointed to command the program, known as the Manhattan Project, to lead the project's secret weapons laboratory. It was a choice that surprised many, as Oppenheimer was known to be politically distant from the conservative military branch and was not a leader of a large project. In fact, Groves himself had reservations about his decision because Oppenheimer did not have a Nobel Prize. How could he have enough prestige to lead others? However, Groves was impressed by Oppenheimer's deep understanding of the practical aspects of designing and building an atomic bomb, as well as his broad knowledge across many fields. The military engineers knew that these qualities were essential in a multidisciplinary field that would involve not only physics, but also metallurgy, ballistics, and engineering. Groves also saw in Oppenheimer something others did not, an overwhelming ambition that Groves believed would provide the necessary drive to push the project to success. People assessed this appointment as truly a stroke of genius by General Groves, an ordinary man, not particularly brilliant at the time. The United States was not the only nation pursuing a secret nuclear program. Two German-born British scientists, Frisch and Peierls, were diligently researching to defeat their German compatriots in the race to build the atomic bomb. Oppenheimer and Groves decided that to ensure security and cohesion, they needed to place the laboratory in a concentrated, secret, remote location. While searching for such a site, at the end of 1942, Oppenheimer was drawn to New Mexico, to a place not far from his ranch. After multiple site surveys and evaluations, the location chosen was a private boys' school called the Los Alamos Ranch School. To ensure secrecy, the Los Alamos laboratory was built on the school grounds, taking over the existing in a military report. There was a passage stating that Professor Einstein was an extreme progressive with connections to communist activities. Even the press was forbidden from reporting on it, even a single word about nuclear physics. Oppenheimer initially had difficulty organizing the large groups, but he quickly learned the art of large-scale management. After he decided to move and live in the compound, he was noticed for his ability to grasp every aspect of the project's science and his efforts to manage the inevitable cultural conflicts between scientists and the military. In his role as scientific director, he was a heroic figure for the scientists, almost a symbol of what they were striving to achieve. Oppenheimer led these research efforts, both theoretical and experimental, in the truest sense of the words, here. His ability to grasp the core of any subject with frightening speed was a decisive factor in the operation. He could quickly become familiar with the essential details of every part of the work. Oppenheimer did not manage from a command room. He was present at every critical step, appearing in the laboratory or the seminar room where new data was being measured and read, or when a new idea was forming. He was not the one generating a flood of ideas or suggestions. The main influence of Oppenheimer came from something else. His constant, high-intensity presence created a feeling of direct involvement for all his colleagues. It created a unique, enthusiastic atmosphere, full of challenge, that permeated the entire duration of the project. After 6 years of research, the group of scientists at the Los Alamos laboratory finally created what they believed to be an effective nuclear weapon. Now it was time to test this weapon. On July 16, 1945, a nuclear bomb named Gadget was transported to the Jornada del Muerto desert, about 35 miles southeast of the small town of Socorro, New Mexico. To prevent any unforeseen accidents, the bomb was placed inside a tower made of 210 tons of steel, with walls nearly 36 centimeters thick surrounding it. If the test failed, Groves and Oppenheimer believed they could safely recover the plutonium inside the tower through foam. When detonated, the explosion had the force of 20,000 tons of TNT, forming a giant fireball and creating a mushroom cloud that reached a height of over 12 kilometers. This result far exceeded the expectations of the group of research scientists, ushering in the atomic age, but the project director Robert's assessment was that the world will never be the same. Just before this, within 30 days of the test, the bomb was put into use. On August 6, 1945, the first atomic bomb, Little Boy, was dropped on the city of Hiroshima. 3 days later, the second atomic bomb, Fat Man, was dropped on the Japanese city of Nagasaki. For Groves, dropping the 2 bombs on Japan was a victory. But not everyone recognized this. Among the scientists who participated in the project, many regretted what they had done. Of course, this included Oppenheimer himself. The atomic bomb made the world worse, Oppenheimer confessed. Throughout the Cold War, he struggled to end the nuclear arms race for peace. His struggle was so intense that he was investigated by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Accused of being a communist, one thing is certain: the Manhattan Project changed the world forever. In 1949, Soviet scientists, using obtained data, developed a nuclear bomb based on the model of the bomb dropped on Nagasaki. After World War II, The United States established the Atomic Energy Commission to oversee research efforts to apply the technologies developed under the Manhattan Project to other fields. Finally, in 1964, the then U.S. President Lyndon Johnson ended the era of government monopoly on nuclear energy by allowing private ownership of this material. Since then, the nuclear fission technology, perfected by the scientists of the Manhattan Project, has become the foundation for the development of nuclear reactors, nuclear power plants, and other spin-off projects. Notably, it has applications in medical imaging, diagnostics, such as MRI machines, and in radiation therapy for various types of cancer. As of now, a total of 9 countries are believed to possess their own nuclear weapons. Yet, in the very name of this list, we do not see the appearance of Germany. Isn't that strange? Wasn't it Germany that was initially the leader, the one that made the United States launch the Manhattan Project without a moment's delay? What reason caused Germany to be unable to possess nuclear weapons? Returning to World War II, when German scientists were the ones who first built the world's first experimental nuclear reactor. However, the efforts of German scientists to research and build this weapon did not achieve the hoped-for success, although they were the ones who discovered the catalyst for future nuclear fission researches, early as 1939. Intelligence reports at the time indicated that Germany was leading the race in nuclear research. Germany was the homeland of the groundbreaking discovery of atomic fission, first successfully achieved by German scientists Otto Hahn and Strassmann. In 1938, although Hitler's racial purification policies caused Germany to lose some of its top Jewish experts, a large contingent of talented scientists remained. After conquering Czechoslovakia in 1939, the Germans gained control of the uranium mines at Jeshimov. The continued expansion campaigns across Western Europe gave Hitler several hundred tons of uranium ore in Belgium, the world's only heavy water production plant at the time, located in Norway, and the particle accelerator systems in France were all extremely necessary for the birth of nuclear weapons. Even Germany at that time had not built these on its own soil. Despite facing many technical difficulties, Germany built a nuclear reactor in Berlin, installed at a factory near Dahlem, accumulating enough plutonium to produce an atomic bomb. Faced with these dangers, the Allies launched a large-scale, long-term campaign to prevent the success of the German nuclear program. In November 1942, a special forces unit deployed by glider was sent to destroy the heavy water plant in Norway. The mission was not a complete success, but it did cause some damage to the fascists. The British even created a list of targets related to the German nuclear program to look for opportunities to attack. At the end of 1943, the British Royal Air Force used incendiary bombs to burn down the uranium enrichment plant in Dieppe. In September 1944, a ferry carrying heavy water from Norway to Germany was also sunk. However, in assessment, the main reason for Hitler's lagging behind in the nuclear arms race, despite having started first, stemmed from his own investment and management policies. One of the physicists who worked for the German nuclear program was the theoretical expert Werner Heisenberg, the creator of quantum theory and a Nobel Prize winner in physics. Unlike the American scientists participating in the Manhattan Project, under the unified direction of Oppenheimer and General Leslie Groves, the German groups worked on separate, independent experiments. These groups were given code names after the cities where their research facilities were located: Berlin, Gotto, and Heigerlach. Although they started their work before the Americans, their research progress to build a nuclear reactor was much slower. The main reason was the fierce competition for already very limited resources, the brutal competition between research groups, and ineffective management. In the winter of 1944, as the Allied forces began to pour into Germany, Heisenberg and his colleagues desperately tried to achieve criticality for their reactor. If successful, Berlin would lose the war, but hopes remained to preserve the prestige of the scientific community. And to achieve a nuclear chain reaction, it should be added that at that time, because Germany still did not know of the significant successes achieved in the Manhattan Project, Heisenberg's research group moved south, concentrating in a secret cave located beneath a castle in the city of Heigerloch. Here, they developed a final experiment. A group of 8 German Nobel laureate scientists later described this experiment in detail in his 1953 book, Nuclear Physics. They mobilized a total of 664 uranium cubes, hung on racks above a pot of heavy water with graphite walls. Despite having made significant progress, the German scientists still could not achieve criticality. To make it clearer, let me show you this. This is a cube that appeared at the University of Maryland in 2017. It is a cube of uranium, 5 centimeters on each side, weighing 22 kilograms, and one of the materials used in the Nazi experiments. Research shows these were only initial successful steps by German scientists at that time. Specifically, gamma spectroscopy results show that the isotopic composition of the cube is similar only to that of natural uranium, not depleted or enriched. The cube had also not reached the critical mass limit and did not contain fission products like cesium-137. So, how did the Americans get this? The answer is simple: because they were the victors. In 1944, as the Allied forces began to advance deep into German-occupied territories, General Leslie Groves ordered the launch of an operation codenamed ALSOS to collect information on German scientific research projects. However, the Americans were most interested in the uranium research program. One of the key figures directly involved in leading the American scientists in this operation was Samuel Gaudsmit, who later founded the journal Physical Review Letters. At the end of April 1945, the ALSOS research team arrived in Heigerloch. The German physicists there, including Heisenberg, were captured and interrogated. Through this, the Americans learned that as the Allies approached southern Germany, the fascists hastily dismantled their experimental reactor, buried the uranium cubes in a nearby field, and poured the heavy water into barrels hidden in toilets. As a result, a total of 659 uranium cubes and the heavy water were dug up and transported to Paris, then shipped to the United States. One of the important purposes of this decision was to prevent the Soviet Union from using these materials for their own nuclear weapons research program. Contrary to initial assessments that German scientists could not build a perfect nuclear reactor due to a lack of uranium, recently declassified documents show that the Nazis actually had more uranium cubes than previously thought. In fact, if they had concentrated an additional 50% of the uranium at the experimental reactor, the Germans could have achieved criticality. The main reason for Hitler's failure was the key figure who dispersed the resources instead of consolidating them. Fortunately for the world, the Nazis did not concentrate enough uranium as required by Heisenberg. Despite American efforts, the uranium cubes still slipped into the black market before reaching the Soviet Union. A few of these cubes were also secretly transferred to the United States and fell into the hands of private collectors, including one owned by Robert. The uranium that was shipped from Europe. Today, we are still living in the age of nuclear weapons. We cannot know when it will end, but I am certain it will also be the end of the world. What do you think about Oppenheimer and nuclear weapons, the ultimate weapon? I hope those who possess it will think very carefully before pressing that detonation button. Thank you for watching today. If this video sparked your curiosity, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to MrBitut's channel. It really helps the channel reach more curious minds like yours. Drop a comment below. What do you think, or suggest the next mystery we should explore?